Hello, I'm a little later this week. Uh, yeah, I'm a little later this week. Sorry about that. Why am I apologizing? I don't know if any of you actually see me. And I am pulling up my essay and it is not working. If I do that, there we go. All right, so this past week, the CEO announced a new flexible work policy at my new company. The current policy is that everybody who is within 40 miles of an office location comes into work Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. But those within 6 months of their start date, so including me, also come in on Tuesday. So it's a three day work in the office schedule, with those who are new to the company coming in 4 days instead of three. A few other aspects of the work from home policy is that every employee is given 4 weeks of work from home or wherever each year, but they cannot be taken consecutively. I've heard of a few exceptions, mostly for people that were hired during COVID and were never required to come back in the office because they don't live within 40 miles of a location. Now, the new policy it changes a few of the same things. First, the in-office days increase for everybody from 3 to 4, but you can take those on whichever days you want in the week. Second, there's going to be fewer exceptions, and people who are more in office will be um, more likely to be promoted. It's not set in stone. There are still some promotions that can happen outside of the in office, but they are making I think they're making an effort to promote those who are more in office. I'm not sure about that. I heard a rumor about that, but I'm not sure. I didn't see it in the announcement itself, so I need to check that. Regardless, one of the other changes that the policy makes is that the 4 weeks of work from home can be taken consecutively instead of not being taken consecutively. So this announcement, that was probably a lot more details than we needed, but it got me thinking about the relative strengths of consistency versus customization. We had a Q&A session with the CEO pretty soon after the announcement. From how he answered the questions and some other things he said, one of the reasons I gathered for the purpose of this policy is that currently um, there are a lot of exceptions. There's a lot of people that have their own customized work arrangement, and that it is putting excessive strain on our HR and our people leaders to keep them straight, right? To try and provide a consistent experience to the employees at my company without, while still providing, customization. And that strain is more costly than it seems to be worth. That's one of the reasons. He also talked about culture and making sure that our employees want to work for this cause together. They appreciate helping out customers and making a difference in this industry. Um, but with that, it seems like currently there's not much of an expectation other than for new hires for working remotely or whatnot. Exceptions are pretty easy to get. Um, and that's why there's a lot of them. So with this additional level of consistency that removes some customization for situations, and I was thinking, is this helpful or not from the company's perspective? Of course, the CEO thinks it's helpful, but do I think it's helpful? Apologies, that is my alarm. So from a corporate level, thinking about consistency, it's a really important part of branding, right? I think of McDonald's, right? They have a consistent experience across the U.S., across international restaurants, and whether or not you think it's good, it's consistent, right? They don't have many variations in the food they provide or whatnot, and that's an important part of their branding. Because if you don't have consistency, then you don't have a solid brand. People don't know who you are. Because two people have different experiences, and they're like, well, which one is the correct one, right? What is McDonald's, right? Individually, the same way. If I am inconsistent in how I show up, then people have a different idea of who I am as a person. But the corporate consistency, there's also an aspect with the employee experience, not just customer experience, where consistency is important. If two employees have a different experience of working for the same company, then how does the company say, oh, we're this way, when in reality, the employees themselves experience it different ways. So having a consistent experience is a key part of an identity as a company and as part of branding. Um, but then how does the customization come in? People like having options, um, which is great for the people who have the options. But if somebody doesn't know what a company is because all these people have different experiences with it, then the customization for those people might be great, but it doesn't really get the identity of the company across, right? And also, I mean, even though humans like having options, we're not always happier with it, right? There's a paradox of choice where if you have 30 choices of jam, you'll either not choose one or be less happy with it than you do if there are 3 choices of jam. So having customized options is important to keep people happy. However, it's not actually that much happier frequently. So if you can choose a few of the most preferred options, that might be better in terms of customization instead of having a slightly different flavor of jam for each individual person. Now moving from the corporate, so as far as sorry, what this means for my new company, I'm not sure. I'll have to figure out. I'm still going into the office 4 days a week, so it won't affect me that much. But it'll be interesting to see my coworkers' thoughts on it. Now, from an individual and personal level as well, I was thinking about consistency versus customization. And now, consistency to me means a lot more structure, right? If I take the example of working out, uh, if I stick to a structure, a consistent schedule of working out, whether I want to or not on the specific days, um, my experience and my my health will be a lot better. That doesn't mean that some days I don't want to work out, and some days I shouldn't work out, right? If I'm really sick one day, I probably shouldn't work out, and that's kind of a customized option. But if I don't have a schedule, a structure, and I have to make the choice individually each day to work out instead of um, outsourcing that decision to past Statler, the decision each day gets a little bit it's a lot harder than if I make the decision the night before or a week before, etc. So frequently in our personal lives, having a consistent structure that we stick to can help us make better choices, choices that we know are healthier in the long run. Um, but there's a balance, right? And I was thinking about where the balance is in my life, and is it different for each person? Um, and so a related concern, a related aspect of this is that if I follow the path, the line of thought that everybody's life is different and there can be no consistencies across, right? For example, working out is great for me, but it might not be great for somebody else. And not just like going to the gym is great for me, but being active is great for me, but it might not be great for somebody else. Then I can see myself falling into the trap that I am special in ways that nobody else is, right? I am so unique that nobody can tell me what to do because my life is my own, and I know what will make me happy. I know what is best for me, um, and that's a trap. And here's why: if I believe that I'm so unique, then I can use that as an excuse to do what I want whenever I want, and it's just my life, right? It's just my life. You can't tell me that this is bad because it might be bad for you, but it's not bad for me. Um, and then in that case, in that world, um, making healthy choices, there's no such thing as a healthy choice, right? It's just what's right for you. It's to me, it's what's wrong with a lot of the um, live your truth or reality is subjective line of thought, where there are choices, there are decisions that we can make that are objectively that objectively lead to a better life outcome, right? Helps lead to happier lives, more fulfilling lives, longer lives, um, even though it's uncomfortable, right? To me, like working out is the perfect example. All the evidence suggests that people who are active, who eat healthy, um, are happier, live longer, and are more active in their old age and able to do more things than those who are not active and don't eat healthy. Um, so to ignore that body of evidence in favor of, oh, this is right for me, seems to be a trap that a lot of people fall into in a lot more ways than I think we admit. Um, to the degree that I know I fall into that trap, um, but I don't know where. So maybe this next week I'll take a closer look at my life and be like, oh, this is where I think that I'm special and I'm different and I'm really not. Um, anyways, going down that line of thinking, um, I could be fooling myself into behavior that I think something is right for me when all I want is a lower standard of behavior. I just want to be kept to a lower standard. I want you to be impressed with me because I'm doing this, and I don't want you to think that I can do more because I don't want to do more because it takes a lot of work. Um, and this general topic has been brought up in a couple discussions that I've had lately. My generation seems to be a little bit obsessed with mental sickness, and I call it that for a reason. Um, I've been careful in my life not to give myself a label of a mental illness. Um, not only because I haven't been diagnosed, uh, but because I know myself that I will use that label, even if it's a self-diagnosis, um, as an excuse to get out of discomfort. To not try as hard and to accept a lower standard of behavior from myself. Um, could I self-diagnose? I think I could. I've had panic attacks in social situations before, several. Um, so do I have social anxiety? And when I have that question, I believe that if I had convinced myself that I had social anxiety, that I had that label, I would have more panic attacks. I would have an exponentially harder time um, talking with people in normal social situations because of the belief that I have about myself. Um, I would use that belief as an excuse to become a recluse and hide myself from any social situation. I think it's human nature to avoid hardship, and it becomes all too easy to avoid difficulty under the guise of a customized life. And it's difficult to balance this um, with valid reasons, right? Um, because I mean, there are people that are in very difficult situations that have had a lot of issues in their life, and um, maybe their brain chemistry doesn't work the same, um, etc. Right? So it's difficult to have a stance on this that is consistent across because there's a lot of variation. Um, but one thing that I do believe is true that is consistent across is that, okay, most people, and I'm talking 99%, minus David Goggins, most people do almost everything they can to avoid um, discomfort, right? Um, if they didn't have to have discomfort, a lot of people think happiness as the absence of discomfort. Um, and I do believe that to be true across the vast majority of people. So whether or not there is some viable uh, reason, some viable mental sickness or mental illness, um, I don't think that exempts people from also being in the category that they don't want discomfort. And those with mental illness need to be extra care. Well, need to be need to be is probably not the right word. I'm going off script a bit here. I didn't write quite as much this week. Those with mental illness have an have a have a harder time. Well, yeah, harder time with life. Have an easy excuse at their fingertips. Um, to use carefully. If that I don't know if that makes sense. Somebody without an arm has an easy excuse why they're not good at basketball, right? And so those with mental illness have an easy excuse at their disposal. And if somebody doesn't have an arm, they can say, "Oh, I'm not good at basketball. I'm not going to be active," right? And expand what is a legitimate loss of an arm into something that ultimately hurts them in the long run. Where somebody with mental illness is in a similar situation where they have physical limitations for sure, and they are at a crossroads. It's really easy to use that physical limitation to expand that into areas where it might not impact as much, or might not be as determinate, and then impact them more negatively than it would by itself. It's kind of expand the issue, expand the illness into areas where it doesn't need to be. Um, and this is precisely why I'm writing essays, because I have thoughts and I can't convey them super well all the time. Um, anyways, so how to land this plane? Not really sure. Um, I think, I mean, first of all, it's important to be honest with yourself, and to try and do hard things, right? If you become more acquainted with discomfort by choice, then it's easier to deal with the discomfort when it's not by choice. Um, and being honest with yourself is imperative in this, because we all look for excuses to avoid discomfort, whether or not we are neurotypical or neurospicy, as I've heard it said. Um, and hopefully I'm not fooling myself. I tend to be very good at lying to myself, and I'm hoping to overcome that. So, future styler, if you're watching this, be honest with yourself. It's a good practice. All right, talk to you later. Maybe next week will be better.